You've heard the reports. The globe is warming, and it's our fault. And the consequences will be terrible.
The world is heating up fast, and we have ourselves to blame.
Global warming is real, and we humans are almost certainly the cause.
But you should know there is another side to this story, and scientists who've tried to tell it are often threatened, which makes me say, give me a break.
I worry. My mom worries. The water might rise and it might flood the whole town.
We won't be able to survive for long.
One of the favorite things of the left is to use your sentimentality to try to scare you into supporting radical ideas on the environment. They tried it with this idea, this politicization of science called man-made global warming.
They think that they're addressing, or at least they like to think they're addressing the greatest problem that humanity has ever faced, a problem caused by humanity's own greed and selfishness. And of course, the whole thing is essentially nonsense.
The debate's over. The science is agreed upon.
The debate is over, and the science is in.
The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change got a Nobel Prize. They got a scientific prize for making a discovery. They didn't get a minor award. This is a big deal. They discovered climate change through all kinds of evidence, and it's something we should all be very, very concerned about.
Global warming? Well, listen, this sounded legit to me, so I thought I'd best do some research. The crux of it is, over the last 100 years, the temperature of this planet has gone up 1.8 degrees. Am I the only one who finds that amazingly stable? But environmentalists, they don't want to hear it. They get really cranky. They'll give you that guilt card. Well, what about your kids? Of course I love my kids. I hope they live to be 100. It's another 1.8. And they give you, what about your kids' kids? 3.6. I'll just tell them we moved to Phoenix or something.
We are, along with the rest of humanity, facing the dire and growing threat of the climate crisis. We cannot afford to wait any longer, and each day that we wait, we increase the risk that we will leave our children and grandchildren an irreparably damaged planet. And it is truly a moral imperative.
Hi, I'm Vicky.
I'm Josh.
This is Steven.
Hi, I'm Bernie. And we're here today to discuss our project, which we've called Crisis or Crazy, in which we outline the transmission of ideas about climate change and global warming. Despite the overwhelming consensus within the scientific community, there is still a great divide amongst Americans. Where are these conflicting ideas coming from? Who are the people responsible for these competing schools of thought? Where does the average American get their information from? And what are the implications from each viewpoint?
For many, the issue of global warming and its effects are clear and resolute. For others, global warming is merely one part of a leftist conservationist propaganda. As with most discourse on claims pertaining to faults and machinations of human industry, there will be debate. The issue of global warming is so pervasive that most people can form an opinion on it one way or the other. When an individual has a strong opinion on this issue, it will probably be informed by one or more claims makers. A claims maker is any individual or institution that adds to the discourse on an issue. For our purposes, the important claims makers exist in two fields. The first field, the scientific field, includes geologists, climatologists, and oceanographers who have gathered the hard science that backs claims about global warming. The second field, popular outlets, include politicians, celebrities, and news media. What we expect to find is that belief in global warming may be heavily influenced by which kind of source an individual trusts and digests. Another area of interest for our research is the dynamic history of the idea of global warming and how belief may be influenced by the different modern paradigms of global warming theory. A primary step in doing this research is to actually get an idea for what real people believe about global warming, and more importantly, how they have come to their beliefs. With a carefully crafted and distributed survey, we collected live data and compared it with the previously mentioned discourse on sources. The main focus of this research is to describe the consequences of the various methods of ideological transmission methods surrounding global warming, the relevance of finding out how people come to their conclusions about global warming, and through what means will be a final area of analysis. Global warming is an ecological concept in itself, but popular ideas about global warming are a purely sociological front that deserves a real research explanation.
In his study Shifting Opinion on Climate Change, Ohio State sociology professor J. Craig Jenkins found that their data suggests how it is the political leaders in Washington who are really driving public opinion on the threat of climate change. Jenkins came to this conclusion after noticing how public opinion on the threat of climate change peaked in 2006 and 2007, a time when Democrats and Republicans demonstrated their highest consensus on the issue. In the following years, as politicians became more polarized on the issue, public concern also waned. Jenkins thus concluded, when political leaders can't agree on whether climate change is a threat, The majority of people can't either. But have politicians become more divided on the issue? The findings of a recent study co-authored by Graciela Kincaid of Brown University suggest that the political climate around climate change has become such a hot-button issue that the terms global warming and climate change have become taboo phrases in Washington, particularly on the left. Kincaid's study found that the Obama administration's references to climate change and global warming have been replaced by calls for clean energy and energy independence. The president's most recent State of the Union address used the term climate change only once. However, looking again at President Obama's 2012 address, the terms energy and clean energy were used nearly 24 times. Kincaid claims the phrases climate change and global warming have become all but taboo on Capitol Hill. While the right has shown a tendency to question or completely negate climate science, the left, as shown in Graciela Kincaid's study, have recently illustrated a linguistic shift in an effort to ruffle fewer feathers. If our politicians, in fact, have the greatest influence on the American people's opinion of global warming, and if these trends continue, it looks as if the public's views on climate change will continue to be harshly divided looking forward. Unfortunately, our two-party system that has encouraged this root for the home team atmosphere will continue to inhibit significant progress.
Summer in the city, back on my neck, getting dirty and gritty. All around, people looking half dead, walking on the sidewalk, holler that I'm
So now we want to talk about the scientific side of the discourse and what the consequences of that are. We looked at a study called Shifting Public Opinion on Climate Change by Bruhl, Carmichael, and Jenkins, and they described a lot of different drivers of changes in public concern over global warming and climate change, like noticing regional weather change, party alignment, and understanding and exposure to the science. People with more exposure in a formal setting to the science of global warming report higher levels of concern. The heavily biased world of cable news and political allegiances divert real understanding of concern about global warming. Many people report that they don't go to scientific journals for information, and this is mirrored in our survey results, but this is normal. People aren't going to go look up the scientific journals. We rely on other sources to transmit that understanding from the science. Cable news and other popular sources are easy ways of doing this. We interviewed a graduate student here at UCSB named Eric Nielsen, who described his work with a publisher whose goal was to gather the science on global warming and write reviews and analyses about them. He told us that this work is important because it takes the current science perspective on the issue and makes it accessible to a more general audience. This is the kind of thing that would be of great use for the global warming discourse, because the science is not always accessible. Despite the work of people like Eric and the findings by Bruhl and his team, understandings of the science of global warming is a relatively weak driver for concern overall. In order to get a sense of why this is the case, we decided to explore the point of view of the science and the scientists themselves directly. Our big break was by finding a recent Berkeley study. The article that described the Berkeley study also described the point of view of the scientists, which is what we were interested in. So consider the following from the study. These scientists also say that global warming is a fact. The Berkeley scientists don't say that there is human aspect to the warming, and they don't propose any solutions, which is pretty interesting. The scientific method is used by scientists to continuously dismantle the established knowledge of any particular issue, global warming included. The fact that the scientists are trying their hardest to disprove global warming and failing does a lot to derail the skeptics outside the scientific community. There are also some problems with this necessary strategy. The science can make claims about warming trends, but it is much harder to make claims about policy change or what humans can do to prevent warming. And if they did, the science would lose legitimacy as science and be labeled activism. Now, if the scientists are not giving solutions to the problem or telling us what to do about it, we don't put a lot of stock in the science. It's not persuasive because it's not doing any persuading to do any action. This means that biased sources that are not as accountable as the scientists can swoop in to make claims about what should or should not be done, which goes both ways. Skeptics and activists alike can use science to propose any number of messages about what to do. The more this happens, the less the scientific community is involved in the discourse, which explains why science is among the weaker drivers of concerns about global warming.
Through our surveys, we were able to ask some of the population where they were getting their opinions on the climate crisis. We surveyed varying age groups from college students at the UCSB campus, other young adults, and even older generations to see if their opinions varied from those of the younger generations. From the younger generations, we could see that most were getting their facts from social media, popular TV shows, documentaries such as The Inconvenient Truth, social networking sites such as Facebook, and even some popular books. Some facts were also received from news network shows such as CNN, NBC, ABC, Fox News, and MSNBC. And also from some political leaders. Many believe that the facts from the scientific community are true, but are not as active in seeking information from them. We asked questions in our survey, such as where people were receiving their information from: politicians, cable news, the scientific community, celebrity activists, documentaries, television shows, or religious views. From the results, we see that many received their information from the scientific community and from documentaries. Many people were also saying that they noticed weather changes, and that is why they are feeling that the climate crisis is an issue. When asked, were there any factors to bring your attention to the climate change, many had said it had to do with the drastic hot or cold weather. Although this may be true, many are also saying they're not doing much to decrease their carbon footprint, but are also concerned for their future and the future of their children, not anything past that. When asked what would the world be like in 100 years, many had said probably in a bad situation, but still don't fear it because it will not be within their own lifetime.
The results of our survey continue to further the discourse on global warming. Is it time to stand up against big oil, or is global warming simply a conspiracy of the left designed to increase the political power of those advocating change? Whether you feel climate change to be a crisis or crazy, you do think something. Our primary sources of information are not the only factors shaping public opinion. Our behaviors and beliefs cannot be reduced to simple cause and effect, and neither can our stance on this issue. As public consciousness on climate change continues to evolve, we must ask ourselves two very important questions. What do you believe, and what path does this create for the future of our planet?